Good evening and welcome to the big interviews of the Big Scope, India's first post cable network. Now, normally we get people from across the world who are building something on cybersecurity or cryptocurrency, or people who are trying to build new age technologies like Hyperloop. But today on the show, I've got somebody, uh, a really interesting person who has built an application which is a crypto price tracker, and she's been in the news in the last couple of weeks, and I don't know whether she invests in cryptocurrency or not, but let's talk to Harshita Arora. Hi.
Hello, thank you. Thanks for having
Well,
me.
so what made you come up with an app? Even before we go to the app thing, how did your interest develop in cryptocurrencies or anything to do with blockchain? Where did all that start?
Sure. So the first time I came across the word cryptocurrencies or blockchain was back in 2016 when I was reading a monthly tech magazine that I read. So there was an entire dedicated chapter to Bitcoin mining and how blockchain works. I remember going through it and really liking the concepts and understand and I remember they mentioned that blockchain is internet but for exchanging value. And I found that really amusing and really interesting because I knew the kind of impact the internet had on the overall world and businesses as we saw it. But I never got around to building anything on top of blockchain framework or thinking of any innovative ideas of what I could build because that chapter didn't have what other people were doing or what applications could there be. It specifically talked about Bitcoin mining. Um, so then I did not go and research much on it because I was learning web development during that time and I was doing some client projects. But in 2017, cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin specifically was like all over the internet. It was on my Facebook, it was on my Quora, just literally everywhere I would go. And um, and it seemed like wow, this is getting much. It's getting much more saturation and everything. And I want to be able to build something that solves a market need in this space. And I want to build something that people will pay for.
Interesting.
So I started looking for ideas, and I came across a lot of applications for tracking prices of cryptocurrencies and managing portfolio for people who have invested in them. And I personally wanted to track prices, and I wanted to even set alerts and track prices of historical or track historical
So
prices.
is that because you do also invest in cryptos?
I don't. I am not old
Okay.
enough to sign up
Okay.
for X16. I mean, all of them. I mean, of course, I can do it with my dad's account, just that the way other teenagers probably do. But I think like what I am much more interested in is not the Bitcoin as an asset to invest in or any other cryptocurrency for that matter, but more about that how it could impact the world, the technology, and how it could make transacting value over the internet much easier and
Okay.
over not just yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So I don't invest in cryptos. Yeah.
Okay. So the other interesting thing is over here. So does this also talk about exchanges in India, or is it just about the data from exchanges across the world? I mean, outside India.
So currently the app has 19 exchanges and they are being pulled from a public data. The data about the prices data is being updated in real time every 5 seconds in the app because it's getting the prices from a public API. Um, but there are, I mean, there's not the Indian exchanges like ZepPay or other exchanges that are common in India because my target audience wasn't really that much in India because the market share for iOS, that is iPhones or iPads, is really low compared to something like the US. So I did not. Is that wrong? So yeah, so that's why I thought like, well, I don't want to specifically focus, and it was much easier to code to get prizes from just a public API. But I do look forward to adding country-specific exchanges. Like there are certain exchanges in Australia that my customers have been emailing me that they want me to add it to them, and I keep noting them to the features list, and I look forward to building them.
So
But currently, the app
so
has
are you also
19.
like are you also tell your friends or I mean folks who write to you in terms of invest in this, invest in that?
I don't advise because I don't have the kind of, I guess, financial or investment related knowledge or expertise or background in any way. I think there are much smarter people, especially the kind of people you'll find on Quora. They have better investment advice than probably than me. But yeah, there are certain specific writers that I follow.
Okay, interesting, interesting. So when did you take up coding? I remember talking to you through email. So when did you take up coding, and what's your favorite programming language?
Sure. I started programming in 2016, and before I was a programmer, I was a designer because of my computer science teacher at school. He was primarily a designer and photographer, and he would teach me how to use design softwares and some design principles, and he would assign me projects like design posters, design imaginary apps and websites, and contribute to the school's magazines and their cover design and such and so much more. And just being able to design something made me want to just Google further to learn better practices and such. And that's where I discovered coding. But I never really did took on that because I thought my school doesn't have any coding projects, so I'm not going to be able to
Okay.
practice. In general, there was reluctance. But then he taught me coding concepts, basic programming concepts like conditionals, variables, some object-oriented programming basics. But then during that time, he also told me about Google Scratch and MIT App Inventor. I
Yes.
started with Google Scratch for about a couple days, and I made some projects in there, some games and little stuff, and I really liked the community over there. And MIT App Inventor actually let me build real apps that could be deployed on Android phones. And I remember making a replica of my school's website for fun and just doing small app projects before I really learned web development and did some websites, started some kind of internet businesses that did not take off, and doing some client projects, all before I decided that I wanted to drop out of school, which was in 2016, October.
Interesting. Also, I mean, at the same point of time, I mean, if you look at this app and at the time at which such an app has been published in the market, I mean, there's a lot of talk specifically in a country like India. I mean, government says something, we are doing something. There are so many exchanges. There are people who are I mean, people from the age of 16, 18 to people even 60 to 65. Everybody is investing in cryptos today. So do you think, I mean, since at such a young age you've entered this field, do you think there's something government should do more with respect to cryptocurrencies? At least the idea towards cryptocurrencies should change, because a lot of policymakers are looking at cryptos in a very negative aspect. This might lead to money laundering and all of that. But I personally see a different value in terms of cryptos. Do you think? What do you think more? Which is going to have a much better future? Blockchain as a concept or cryptocurrencies? Do you think we should ban cryptocurrencies, or there should be some regulations on cryptocurrencies?
Right, it's a lot of questions. The first thing I would say is
Yeah.
what governments of any country can do is probably fund cryptocurrency and blockchain related research. That would, I mean, well, I do realize that cryptocurrencies are being used for illegal trade because, well, it's not that they cannot be tracked. It's just that it's much easier to transact and do legal trades with governments, and governments are afraid of taxation. They don't have policies and regulations related to that, and so much more. And there's a lot of fake news as well. But what I personally think is that um, a lot of people pass their judgments, or a lot of people say things about cryptocurrencies and blockchain without fully understanding it. I certainly did before I didn't have understanding of it. I would just imagine, well, this is going to be just used for illegal trade, until I read the Bitcoin white paper, or until I got much deeper into the surface. Um, so what I think is that what governments can do is fund technical research, because I think if we have, I mean, there are obvious technical challenges. Like if you're aware, Stripe introduced Bitcoin for businesses to accept payments in, and they discontinued that. And that was because high processing time and really insanely high transaction fees relative to credit cards and such.
Absolutely.
So we really need is that there are technical challenges, and the ones that I can probably list in an email. Um, is and we need to overcome that, and that only happens when really smart people work on them, and they work when they have an incentives. They're being funded and such. So that is
Obviously.
one important thing. And second, that any country or any government can do is probably think about it and introduce regulations with regards to how people would be paying their taxes or how people would be. I mean, Indian government has, I think, banned for businesses to accept cryptocurrencies for to exchange value, and only fiat is allowed, which is, I guess, fine until regulations come up and the ban is
Right.
lifted. Yeah.
Absolutely. You're almost out of breath there. So a couple of last things. I mean, I was also reading online a lot of blogs, a lot of posts on Reddit. Now, in fact, I have some open in front of me right now, and there are a lot of people who are questioning you. A lot of people who are saying a lot of who commenting on what you have done, saying, "Are you? She's not a prodigy. She's a plagiarist. She's taken this from somewhere else." How do you respond to those allegations?
Well, when it started out almost a month ago, um, I responded by doing really stupid by going offline for 2 days, and I didn't. I mean, I was like, I reported people, I downloaded content, and like blocked them everywhere I could because it wasn't very like it wasn't getting out of hands. It was just a couple hundred people, and I could easily handle and just kind of like shut down from the internet because it gave me a lot of anxiety. Well, but after 2 days of this happening, after 2 years of going offline, it was just really, really getting nuts. And everywhere on the internet, I started getting rape threats from people. I think that was just one account that was sending it, but it was from different Reddit usernames. I'm not sure. I have screenshots of like literally, I started taking screenshots, saved offline copies of everything and such. So in response to your question of how I respond to those things, um, it was started as a personal grudge kind of a thing because the people who started it knew me personally. One of them was my friend for like almost a year. Um, the other person, I don't know her personally, but the one who wrote the blog post, I'm not sure why she did that, what the motivations behind doing it. And most of the evidence is inconclusive, and it's based on. So, like, I gave rebuttals to each of them. I mean, I talked about how her point that I just used one storyboard is really baseless because most iOS app developers use one storyboard for relatively small projects, and my project has like less than 20 screens, so there was no need for another storyboard. And I actually, in my rebuttal, I linked to a post on Medium written by a really experienced iOS app developer where he talks about when you should use more than one storyboard. And similarly, I gave a rebuttal to every point, every acquisition, and the points where essentially they were saying that I did not code the application on my own. Um, but people were downloading my content because people were just blindly and like foolishly believing, and even if they were not programmers themselves, they were like, yeah, she's a plagiarist, she's not coded it at all. That evidence sounds totally makes sense. Um, so that's another thing that I really hate about the people who started spreading this
Absolutely.
blog posts everywhere was her thinking. They weren't thinking clearly. They weren't looking at the evidence. They weren't looking, or they weren't going and doing their research and just blindly believing uh, the incredibly rude and angry blog post that it was, which was taken down later on.
Absolutely.
So anyway, after that happened, for almost a week, I was contacted by a reporter at Daily Beast, and she interviewed me, and she published a story about it, which invited a lot of positive feedback. And in general, a lot of women in tech messaged me and told me that that I always have their support, and I can always ping them for advice and such, and that they're happy that I took the right decisions, which was to report the people who were harassing me online to their respective employers, one of whom issued a public apology, and the other person I got to know was fired by her employer later on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, sometimes you can't control what happens online. I mean, it's that's the whole thing. I mean, there's so much of negativity online, and you can't control the kind of comments, the kind of things people throw at you, people say to you from across the world, from on across platforms. One last thing. I mean, moving away from this, here you have created a platform. What do you want to do next? What's your future, at least for the next 1 year? What do you want to do next? You want to go out of the country, study somewhere else? You want to create some more applications in the crypto world? What's next for you?
For my app, I am currently evaluating a couple of acquisition offers. So most likely by the end of this month, I will be selling the app. Um, as for where I'm gonna be, I am planning to move to the US in June. I am filing for O1 visa petition this April, May-ish. So I have a lawyer who's working on my petition. Um, and after the crypto price tracker app, I am working on a different project with a friend from MIT Launch, and it's an app related to food and health that we're doing for a contest. So that's the next thing on the plate that I will be working on, and it's a great learning opportunity because I've invested some time in the last few months in learning machine learning, and this project uses machine learning in a great way, specifically computer vision and convolutional neural networks. So some a great learning opportunity for me, and I'm switching fields from cryptocurrencies, finances to healthcare, or sort of healthcare, personal health
Okay.
and wellness, more like that, not
Okay.
healthcare specifically. Yeah, that's very broad.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Lovely. But thank you, Harshita, so much for talking to us. Your app is doing extremely well, and I all wish you all the best if you want to sell the app. But all the best for your future, and thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Lovely. So, folks, that was Harshita Arora, the teenage prodigy from India who's created a new app in the crypto world. Until next time, this is Aritra, and stay tuned to the big scope for more in the world of cryptocurrency, cybersecurity, anything to do with tech.